bro. What's up?
Yeah, how's it going? Can you hear me or no?
Yeah, good. How are you?
I'm good, I'm good. You mentioned with the previous guest that like not Alexa, quiet. You mentioned with like the previous guest that like national revelation, especially when like attested to by a nation, is going to be highly more likely to be true. Right. And so now, especially when it's vindictive to a certain or exclusive to a certain religion, and that's how you're justifying Judaism. But now you have a problem, right? Because there are Catholic miracles that exist that come with revelation that we would say vindicate Catholicism, which are going to be more reliable than your Hebrew Bible in terms of in terms of reliability given the contemporaneous of the event. So I'm wondering how you deal with that.
Right. So that's a presentism fallacy, right? Just because the event is like contemporary does not mean it's more reliable. Number one.
I'm not
Num-
making a necessary inference. We're talking about
um,
historical criteria.
One
So
second. One
it
second.
is that fallacy can't
Number
possibly
two.
be true.
Number two. What I would say is that I would not like reject, like for example, these miracles if they had sufficient evidence. I'm glad to grant them. Right? Let's say like I'm sure you're familiar with like one of these Catholic miracles where like they claim Mother Mary appeared to thousands of people. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, the Our Lady of Fatima, but there's hundreds
Right,
of
right.
those. Not hundreds, sorry.
Exactly, exactly,
There's
exactly, exactly.
dozens of
And
them.
because of the amount of people, I would not reject these events took place. However, they would not prove their religion. Because what we have like very easily in the Torah is that many other religions and people will have miracles that are done. Right?
Okay,
Will
good.
have think. Wait, so let me finish. They have
Yeah.
miracles that were done that were taking place. Right. The point is that your religion does not start with this type of revelation, right? With this type of experience of thousands of people. Your religion is based on the testimony of 12 apostles and Paul, which are 13 people, right? Who you claim
Okay.
to
So
observe
there's
God walk in the flesh. That's very
obviously
different.
okay. Let's start with the miracle, right? So you're granting that something supernatural happened, but you're not granting specifically that it's from God. Is that what I'm hearing? Just clarifying that I can continue.
Well, to clarify, what I would say is that just because the supernatural event took place, right? Because that's not the evidence for the religion itself. You would not say that, for example, that is the evidence that is how Christianity started. The evidence for the start of Christianity,
No, we're
right,
not talking
is the
about that, right? Because God can still vindicate a religion with a miracle, right? So if God wants people to come to the religion, He can perform a
sure,
contemporaneous
sure, but that's
miracle to
not
say this religion is true. So that's what I'm talking about. Like
sh-
Catholicism has that.
sure, but the evidence of, for example, those events taking place are not evidence. Is not the evidence provided for Jesus being God, for example, or for Christianity being
It
true.
would be. It
The
would be.
evidence that is provided to substantiate the religion, no, 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 it would not.
Absolutely. Right.
Like
So wait.
again,
You're
if you're
saying
going to say that this, one second, one second. So the evidence that Christianity is true, just to clarify, right? To the start of Christianity is based on, for example, like the Eucharistic miracles, and let's just say the events with Mother Mary with those miracles. That's the evidence. It's not what the apostles gave. Just to clarify.
no, that's not what I'm saying. So there's a hypothesis that we have, which is that Christ rose from the dead and Christ is God, and that Catholicism is true.
How do you
And
know
so
this?
we look at that.
How
We
do you know
look at
this? Let's stop.
huh? It's a
How
hypothesis,
do you
right?
know that Jesus rose from the dead?
So it's a
Right, but how do you know
hypothesis.
though?
Yeah, so we're not. I'm not talking about epistemic certainty, right? So there's obviously historical data that we can use to motivate that premise. But right now, I'm talking
Thank you.
about whether or not.
There's
Wait,
evidence.
wait. You gotta let me finish too, dude. So there's also contemporaneous evidence, such as vindictive miracles, that also provide evidence that raises the probability of a certain proposition, like Jesus is God or Catholicism is true. So you can have contemporaneous evidence. Like if God were to come, and I'm gonna ask you, if God were to come down and perform a miracle in front of 80,000 people saying Judaism is true and like hundreds of thousands of like Christians converted back to Judaism, would you say that that's miracle would provide evidence that Judaism is true?
It does not reinforce the reliability of the start of the
I'm
religion.
not
That's the
talking about the
thing, right?
reliability of the start. I'm
I would say
talking
obviously if you
okay,
get
okay, okay. I'm talking about does it
stop,
raise the
stop,
probability?
stop.
No, you're not
This
answering
is
the
what.
question. It's irrelevant. Go ahead. Go
Wait.
ahead.
No, it is not going to raise the probability. Wait,
What?
it
Yo,
is not going to raise the
yo, okay.
probability.
Okay.
Let me finish. Let me finish. Oh my
Okay, go
God,
ahead. Go
it's
ahead.
not going to raise the probability of the rest. Okay, if you interrupt me again, I'm not going to engage. Let me finish, right? It's not going to raise the probability of, for example, the resurrection taking place, which is the basis of your religion, right? The life of Jesus, because that is based off the testimony of the apostles and Paul, right? That is going to be the substantiation for those events taking place. It's not going to be later on miracles. For example, even though later on miracles can prove some kind of like, let's say, divinity of intervention, right? It is not proving that your religion right? Which is on the basis of the testimony of the apostles and how they walked with Paul, and that the resurrection took place. It's not evidence for that, right? So this is what I'm trying to show you, is that still what you're trying to prove. The standard for Christianity, the basis of Christianity, is the fact the resurrection took place, right? And there's obviously much more.
That's not the only way we can
That's
prove
a major
Christianity,
proof.
though. That's the thing. So
I didn't again I didn't say that's the only way. What I'm saying is when it comes to the start of Christianity, of how we know these events took place, Christianity is based on these specific events. It's based on the resurrection. It's based on Jesus' miracles, his walk of life, etc. It's based on those events.
I want
how we verify.
I want to clarify this. You're going on for a little while. I want to have a discussion, not really like a lecture, right? So you're going on for a little while. I want to clarify. If God came down and performed a miracle and said, "This religion is true," that's not evidence for the religion. I want to clarify that's what you're saying.
I'm saying that's not evidence for the testimony.
No,
that's
for the
given.
religion, dude.
Right. So again, if you're
It's
going to
not
say
evidence
like
for the
God,
religion.
wait, 1 second. We are then going to put into question, how do you know it was God? Right.
Okay, that we
Number
can
one.
do that because we have a criteria that exists within the Old Testament to determine whether or not prophets are from God or it's demons, right? Because there are certain
Right.
miracles
Right.
that demons can't perform.
Right. Right. So you could agree. Well, 1 second. You could agree that the standard for a prophet's, for example, reliability, right, or for a miracle's reliability, is that they're in continuity. Correct.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. So then, if Jesus taught stuff, for example, or if his religion was not in continuity with the Tanakh, right, then obviously he can't be a reliable prophet. Correct.
But then now there's a problem with it because if you want to say that Jesus taught something contrary to the Hebrew Bible or like the Old Testament or something like this, right? Then you're gonna have to concede that there's also a possibility of subjective error in that because what happens is that there's a criteria laid out for certain like demons and prophets to determine whether or not these demons and prophets are actually from God, right? And if Our Lady of Fatima fulfills this criteria, you automatically cannot say that this is from a demon or that it's from a false prophet. And so you have to concede that it's from God.
Because the Torah's criteria for being a true prophet, right, or for even being God himself, is continuity. That is part of the criteria. We would not accept it unless you can establish continuity.
So
this is part of the criteria.
So okay.
Right? So for example, if I'm putting into question, for example, Jesus being okay. So if I'm putting into question Jesus being continuity with the Tanakh, you have to display this, right? So I can put into question, I can question you on whether what he said and what he preaches is
because
continuity.
even if you bring an apparent contradiction in sort of like continuity, I can just say that that's a subjective error on your end because you have an error in your subjective reasoning. Whereas like the actual historical data would be more reliable. And if it fulfills the criteria, wait, you can't just say wait. You can't just say my theology is correct, therefore Fatima is false, because that could be a subjective error, right? So there has to be a way.
I'm not presupposing, right, that my religion is true, and that's my argument with you. The fact is that wait. The fact is in regards to Christianity, you affirm the Tanakh to be true. I'm going on the basis of the fact that you affirm the Tanakh. Wait. And because you affirm the Tanakh and you affirm the New Testament to be in continuity with the Tanakh, to substantiate continuity, you have to show this from the Tanakh. Or you'd have to show, for example, oral tradition. Stop. Yes, you would. Unless that's circular. Unless you can establish continuity from the Tanakh, you have two options. The only two ways you can establish continuity are either A, right, from the Tanakh, to show Jesus is actually in continuity with what the Tanakh taught, or B, right, to show that, for example, what came from the mouths of the prophets, the teachings of the prophets, or from Sinai orally, is in fact in continuity with Jesus. Right? Unless you can do this, there's no way to verify continuity. Because the claim in Christianity is that the New Testament is in fact in continuity with the Tanakh. That is the claim. So unless you can establish continuity from the Tanakh, right, then it's going to become unverifiable. That's why I want to question you on the verifiability of Jesus.
Okay, so here's what's going to happen, right? So you've pointed out the fact that, I want to question you on the continuity between the current state of Christianity and the Judaism that existed, or the pre-Masonic Judaism, right? So you're saying you want to question me on the continuity and the verifiability of this continuity
with the Tanakh.
So even
with the Tanakh.
Yes, but again, you're not listening, right? You didn't listen to what I said. So just
you're
listen.
Say it's subjective. That's not.
No, I know. I'm saying if you point out a seeming contradiction, that could possibly be a subjective error So there's no way to
We don't go
verify.
by we don't go by possibility in life. We go by probability and evidence, right? If I
You
walk
realize
into a
possibility
courtroom,
means probability?
wait. If I walk into a courtroom and say, for example, that it's possible that this guy unalived this woman, therefore, yes, she should be arrested, that's not evidence. Anything is possible. It's possible that Judaism is fake. It's possible that the whole thing is made up. It's possible that the 12 apostles and Paul all made up the events that took place with Jesus. But we don't go by possibility. We go by the probability and the evidence.
So
Right? So you
possibility just
saying,
means that there is some probability. So that's what
yeah,
I'm
yes,
saying.
but possibility is not does not show, for example, like raised probability or lower
I know
probability.
it's not.
What
That
you're
doesn't mean it's probable. It just means it's
right there,
possible. I know what you're
right
saying,
there,
dude.
right. So that's not evidence. So you saying even if you point out an apparent contradiction, if I appeal to possibility, fine. It's possible
No, I
that
never said that.
Christianity is false.
No,
I
I
can
never
also
said
appeal to
that.
possibility.
I never said
No,
you
that was
appeal
your
to
point.
possibility. No, I said that.
No, your point was that there is still a possibility that you made a mistake here, that you erred
No,
here
I said
in what
even if
in
you point out a
contradiction.
seemingly contradiction, there's obviously like chances of a subjective error, and so now we have to weigh the
Yes,
evidence.
that's with
Wait,
anything. Hold
you
on a
see, you're
second.
not
That's
letting
with
me
anything
finish.
in
You're not letting me
life.
finish.
Hold on a second. Is it possible that the apostles error? Wait 1 second. Is it possible that the analysis of Jesus Christ
Okay, say. I'm sorry. I'm plugging something in.
possible that the apostles erred in their evaluation of Jesus Christ and their testimony on Jesus?
So prior to any data that we received about like miracles and stuff like this, I would say yeah, it's probable, right? Or it's possible. Sorry, not probable.
So that there's a possibility, right, that they made a mistake. Either they made a
Of
mistake or they
course,
fabricated it, correct?
of
Okay,
course.
thank you. So there being a possibility does not negate the fact that there could be evidence for a contradiction or evidence that shows something that's unreliable, right? So in fact, I'm going to give you the benefit of the doubt in our discussion. I'm not even out a contradiction. I'm going to simply ask you know, which is the I'm going to specifically ask you to, by your criteria, to show continuity, which is very easy, by the way, for you. So I want to see if you can do it.
Okay,
Okay?
so
You're a Catholic, correct?
yeah, I'm literally just gonna use like a couple verses regarding prophecy, and to show you that if
So
this,
one second though. One second. You're a Catholic, correct?
yeah,
Okay. Now you as a Catholic, you affirm the doctrine of the Trinity, correct?
yeah,
And you would affirm that the doctrine of the Trinity is in continuity with the Tanakh, right?
yeah, like it doesn't contradict it, yeah.
Like that's not what I mean, right? Certain things don't have to contradict the Tanakh, but like would not be in continuity, right? Like for example, me saying that
You think? Wait,
like
what?
I'm saying just because something doesn't contradict something doesn't mean it's not like that does
That
not show
literally
it's in
means it's in
continuity with
continuity.
something.
So okay, the same way that like to
No, it does
Moses, wait, I can
not.
show you,
Hold
right? So to Abraham, God never revealed his
on one
name.
second, one
So
second.
when God revealed his name to Abraham or to Moses, that doesn't mean that all of a sudden there's no more continuity with God's name. No, it just
Something
means that
so-
God is
something can
revealing more about himself.
something can still be unverifiable and not be contradictory, right? Meaning, for example, if I say, for example, the Earth is round, right? And I ask you, this is just a hypothetical, and I ask you to establish this from the Tanakh, right? Like I say, like establish this from the Tanakh,
Yeah.
and you can't. That is unverifiable, but that doesn't contradict the Tanakh, right? So things can be, for example, in we would say not be contradicting, right? Not contradict the Tanakh, but still be unverifiable. That's
That's
why I'm
not what
putting
I'm
things into
talking about.
question.
It can okay, so when there's a prophet that comes down and speaks messages, right? And
Right.
then they give us more information about God than they did prior. Just because it's new information doesn't mean it's not in continuity. So continuity just refers to
I never said that. Like, you
non-contradiction.
think I'm not throwing out progressive revelation. No one's denying progressive revelation exists.
Okay,
But
good.
how does progressive revelation show continuity?
Progressive relation itself doesn't show continuity. So there's
Thank you. So this is my point, right? So even if we lay out
you
like
asked if the
substitutions
Trinity
different.
was in continuity. I said yes.
Wait,
Not
wait,
does the
wait. So
Trinity
okay,
show
thank you.
continuity?
Thank you. You said yes. Thank you with the Tanakh. So this
No,
is my
no, okay, no,
question
let's
to you.
because now you're cutting me
Wait. Oh
off
my
right
God.
now. No,
I'm
you
not
just
going to
cut
keep.
me off. You literally just
I'm
cut me
not
off.
going to keep circling with you right now. Okay. So listen.
Okay.
You said that the Trinity is in continuity with the Tanakh. So I'm going to ask you some questions. Right.
Yeah.
You as a Catholic, you would affirm, for example, the Logos and the Word in the Tanakh to be God, right? To be a hypostasis, correct?
Yes.
And you would also affirm the wisdoms, obviously, in Proverbs 8, right?
Yeah.
Yes, and
Yes,
also
that's
the
it.
angel of the Lord. Correct.
Yeah,
Right. Okay.
maybe.
And when we look into Tanakh, we have, for example, the right. So okay, yes or maybe.
For the angel of the Lord, it's a maybe, right? There are differing views. Our theologians dispute on that too.
Okay, fine, fine. We'll put it into a maybe. Okay. But you would for sure accept the wisdoms in the word. This is like by all the church fathers.
Yeah.
So we also have in the Tanakh the Father, Son, and Spirit, like in Isaiah 48:16, right? Which you would obviously affirm to be God in hypostasis. Can you demonstrate in the Tanakh that it's strictly three hypostases? Go ahead.
So again, right, you're asking me to show information that I don't believe has been explicitly revealed yet. So like again, you already affirmed development of doctrine. So
Thank you.
in the New Testament,
You're
no, no,
affirming
no,
you
don't
cannot
cut me
verify
off.
continuity of the
Don't cut me
Trinity.
off. Don't cut me off. No, because we can, right? So
Oh my God,
there's an
bro.
implicit, again, you're cutting me off. There's implicit teachings within the Old Testament that show a Trinity, right? When it's like things like where in Genesis it says us. So there's like a plurality of creators, but then in
Show me. Okay,
Deuteronomy
okay.
it
Hold on
says
a second. Hold on a
one.
second. How does let us make man? Hold on a second. How does let us make man in Genesis verse 126 show continuity for the Trinity, which is strictly three
Okay, so
hypostases?
it's
Go
it's
ahead.
again, it's an implicit teaching that there's a plurality of creators that are all one. So obviously there's that's part of the Trinity doctrine already.
I'll say, I can grant you. I can grant you there's a plurality for the sake of the argument. Let's just say there's a plurality of creators. How does that demonstrate strictly three
Okay,
hypostases?
so you're not understanding again. So I believe God revealed more about himself as time went on. So just because there's not an explicit teaching of the Trinity within
Sure,
the Old
I'll grant
Testament,
you
wait,
this. I'll
why do you
grant
keep
you.
cutting me
Hold on,
off,
hold
dude?
on.
You have a problem.
I'll
You
grant you
literally have a
progressive.
problem.
I'll grant you.
You have a
Wait.
problem with cutting people
I'll
off.
grant you progressive
What do you mean,
revelation.
wait? I was still
I'll
talking. What do you
grant you
mean, wait?
progressive revel. I'll grant you. Okay, you keep going. You keep circling back.
No, you're
I'll
not.
grant you progressive revelation exists. Right, that God reveals stuff later. Fine. How does that show continuity for the Trinity in the Tanakh?
Okay, you
Go
asked me.
ahead.
You asked me if the Trinity was in continuity. Not does the Trinity show continuity? Are you dumb?
Oh my
Look at you.
God! I
Look
said
at him.
demonstrate
He
the
doesn't even
Trinity
know the
is in
question he asked me.
continuity
Yeah, he doesn't even know the
from
question
the
he asked me.
Tanakh. Is this a processing
What
issue?
question did you ask me?
I said demonstrate the Trinity is in.
Yeah,
Okay, I
demonstrate that
said
it's in
show me that the
continuity, not if
Trinity
the
is in
Trinity
fact in
shows
continuity with the
continuity.
Tanakh.
Like, what the
I
heck?
asked you if you.
Those are two different questions, silly.
What? Yes, you have to demonstrate that it's in continuity. Yes, you have to demonstrate it's in continuity.
No,
So
yeah,
show
I
me
don't have to
that the
demonstrate that the
Trinity is in
Trinity
fact in
shows
continuity with the
continuity.
Tanakh.
Okay,
You have to.
okay. So first of all, the Trinity doesn't contradict the
Oh,
Old Testament.
this is like slow. Oh,
Okay,
this is
okay.
like
So
slow.
first
Oh
of
my
all,
god. Oh my god.
the
I
Trinity
can't. I
doesn't
can't.